Jesse and Gerald arrive at an isolated lake house in Fairhope, Alabama, for some time away. While Gerald takes Viagra, Jesse feeds a stray dog outside, but when re-entering the house notices the door is left ajar. Jesse changes into a new night dress, placing the tag on a shelf above the bed, and practices some nighttime moves. Gerald takes a second Viagra and leaves his glass of water on the same shelf. He restrains Jesse with one handcuff on each wrist locked to the bedposts. She seems a bit surprised by this, but goes along. He begins to enact a strange fantasy, telling her to scream for help, knowing no one will hear. She half-heartedly plays along but soon becomes uncomfortable, telling him to stop and uncuff her. He replies, "What if I won't?" After a heated argument where he accuses her of not even trying to rekindle their relationship, Gerald dies of a heart attack, falling onto the floor, leaving Jesse in handcuffs. The dog enters and Jesse tries to scare it away, but it bites a chunk out of Gerald's arm and eats it. Gerald stands up and begins talking, but Jesse notices his body remains on the floor. He taunts Jesse about the truths of their strained marriage and his erectile dysfunctions. He then informs her that she has wasted hours already doing nothing, and she is beginning to suffer from hydration and fatigue. Jesse miraculously pulls a hand out of a cuff and breaks free. She gloats to Gerald, but then turns around and tells herself, the one still trapped, that it is easy to escape. Gerald and the self-assured Jesse tell things about herself and Gerald that she never had the courage to acknowledge. They trigger her to remember the glass of water above the bed, which she is able to reach but cannot bring all the way to her mouth. The hallucinations remind her of the tag she put on the shelf, which she rolls into a straw in order to reach the water. Jesse falls asleep, wakes up in the dark, and sees a tall, deformed, obscured figure who reveals a bag of various bones and trinkets. She closes her eyes saying, "You're not real." But Gerald appears to say that the figure is death waiting to take her. Gerald begins to call Jesse Mouse, which unsettles her. This triggers a memory of her father, Tom, who affectionately referred to her as Mouse. She is 12 years old, vacationing at a lake house with her family. As Jesse and her father sit alone outside to watch a solar eclipse, he suggests she sit on his lap, as she did when she was younger. The handcuffed Jesse awakes to intense pain due to her circulation being cut off and cramping. If you have come this far in the video, please subscribe to this channel to never miss amazing content like this. Gerald and the confident Jesse are skeptical about her claims that she dealt with the pressure of keeping such a secret, and her claims that it had nothing to do with her marriage, even though she married a man just like her father. Gerald teases Jesse about the disfigured man she saw, who he calls the man made of moonlight, and points out what he suspects is a bloody footprint on the floor. After the eclipse, her father tells her he was ashamed of what he did, and manipulates her into agreeing never to tell anyone. Jesse remembers cutting her hand that night, when she squeezed a glass too hard when her mother asked her about the eclipse. The adult Jesse smashes the water glass and cuts her wrist in a way that enables her to peel back the skin, allowing her bloody hand to slip through the cuff. She drags the bed to the key, unlocking her other hand. She drinks water and bandages herself, but then passes out on the floor from blood loss and fatigue. When she wakes, the man made of moonlight is at the end of the hall, and she gives him her wedding ring for his trinket bag. She makes to her car and drives away, but sees the man again in the back seat. The car crashes into a tree, but people from a nearby house come out. 6 months later, Jessie is writing a letter to her 12-year-old self, struggling to write with her hand that needed skin grafts. Voiceovers and scenes describe how she had pretended to have amnesia over the whole ordeal of being trapped, avoiding painful questions. She used some of Gerald's life insurance to start a foundation for victims of abuse. But each night the man made of moonlight still appears before her as she falls asleep. Her wedding ring was never found in the house, and she learned from the news that a man who has acromegaly, causing disfiguration of his head, is a serial killer who dug up crypts, stealing bones and jewels, and occasionally eating the faces of male corpses. This explains why he did not harm Jessie in the house and also why Gerald's face was disfigured. Jesse arrives at court as the Moonlight Man is being sentenced, and calls for his attention. Seeing also Gerald's and Tom's face where his face is, she says, "You're so much smaller than I remember," and walks triumphantly out into the street with the sunlight gleaming down on her. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know in the comment section below which movie you want us to recap next. As always, until the next time.